Good evening.
Everywhere I go on this island, it seems to me I find degeneracy.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes. See, it's a lot scarier when there's no motive, Sid.
We have a bargain.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
Do you feel the pain? Oh, it's the pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
His entire work consists of violence, all the time, obsessed with the issue of violence. Mayhem, gouging out of eyes, autopsies on the stage.
Come. It is time to keep your appointment.
Indeed. Welcome, folks. Welcome to the UK's coziest horror stream, Double Feature Horror Show, episode 116. That is a heck of a lot. Not a round number, but it's a number I'm fond of. We are covering the Autopsy of Jane Doe this week. This is something of an underground gem. I've been looking forward to covering it for a while, but kind of the problem is, where on earth does this fit in the subgenres? Is it even a psychological horror? Am I just kind of like shoehorning this in to the brand new arc that we're starting in August? Yeah, kind of. But the movie is that good. I don't think you'll mind. I hope you are all doing well. Covering the Autopsy of Jane Doe with me this week is returning guest Yiz the Eunuch. How you doing, Yiz?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me again. It's always a pleasure to be here, and I especially appreciate you inviting me on for this movie. This is one of my favorite modern era horror movies, and I have quite a bit to say about it. Some criticisms, but mostly praise. And I'm looking forward to getting into the whole movie with you. I think we'll have a really good conversation about it, and I really hope everybody did their homework and saw this one before the stream.
Oh, seconded. Yeah, I mean, I had to have you back. I think you have requested this a couple of times, so I had it in mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've got to have Yiz on for this.
And I would say before we get started that this does fit the psychological horror, because for those of you that did your homework, you know that a big part of this movie is questioning, are the things that the characters are seeing and that I'm being shown actually happening? And I think that is a major kernel of psychological horror, is what is real? What are the characters experiencing? Are they experiencing their own minds, their own delusions? Are they seeing illusions? And I think that ties in a little bit to psychological horror. So I think this is a good way to launch it. I think it's good.
Yeah, I would go with that. That's a very good definition. You can waste so many hours in the what's which genre, where does it stop argument. And I think realistically, it's for a lot of it, you know it if you see it. If it feels like psychological horror, you probably, you're talking about that. But that idea of a key facet of the horror is not being sure about what you're seeing. Is it true or not? And that being a major factor. Like everything has the Friday the 13th has a, did I see that thing in the woods? Is that someone in the woods? Did I see that or not? But it's not that deep aspect of the film where someone totally loses trust in their senses. I've been thinking about that too much, and it's just been sort of, yeah.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah,
I think thinking about things too much is kind of what you do for a living, so it's okay.
Oh, I wish that the thing I do for a living is far less interesting than this. But while Darth Mohan is in charge on his Death Star, I think I have little chance of making a living out of this. This is just a good bit of fun. And
I suppose what I meant by that was just that's the focus of your channel is
Yes.
being critical and overthinking things. Perhaps I shouldn't have said it as a living. My bad.
It helps with living. What I think, there's a lot of gloom out there, and I like this to be a sort of cozy break for people. We'll just come in and we'll just talk about a film we really like, or occasionally a film that's so bad that it's really funny to tear it apart. We can go either way.
I'm going to share the IMDb link in the chat for everyone so they can pop open and have this open while we talk. This is there you go, chat. There's the link to the IMDb if you want to open up and look at the actors and director and stuff.
Very good idea. And I should also mention I've got a link to Yiz's Twitter in the description, so you can follow if you like what you hear in the conversation, and I'm sure you're going to. You can follow Yiz on Twitter, and that's got the links to all your output. That's probably the easiest way. I wasn't sure how YouTube would feel about a Find My Friends link.
Yeah, let's not do that. I don't want to bring any more ire onto the Find My Friends thing. And I certainly don't want to besmirch your growing channel, because the boot has been on my neck for years, and I haven't grown in subs in almost 3 years, and all of my friends have surpassed me now. So I don't want the curse of the boot on my neck to spread to my friends. So.
Very noble, very noble. Oh, speaking of friends, I should also say TCG is not with us 3rd week in a row. I'm getting the TCG DTs right now, folks, but I will get through it. Yes, I decided not to give you the rap intro that I usually give TCG.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, no worries.
You know that I don't like the non-white man's music.
you appreciate your own, Yes.
I appreciate quality, and I will praise certain people who I think make intelligent rap, such as the Gizza and Jizza, excuse me, and the old guard like Wu-Tang and such. Like there are intelligently made rap out there. There is intelligently made rap out there, but it's just not for me. So, but speaking of things that are for me, this channel is for me, and I would like to see it grow. So remember, the best way to help a channel grow that you like, especially a small one, is sharing out the links to the stream as it's happening on your social media, privately with friends, and personally inviting people to come watch it with you. That is the best way to help a channel like this grow. Please, everyone, do that each week. If you like Chloe and you like what happens on this channel and you want her to grow, please help her do that. Every week, invite people personally that to watch it with you. That's the best way to make a channel like this grow.
Oh, well said. You see, I just can't do it. I need that wonderful American flair, that confidence. I need it. I just can't shill. I'm too British. That's much appreciated. And yeah, it's true, folks. If you know people who like what we do here, who like a deeper film discussion, and who are interested in horror, or even like terrible simulacra of game shows, then
are we going to play one today?
I don't have it today. I don't have it today.
Okay.
Next time you're on, I'll get people on. I kind of want to do a community stream where we just do nothing but those for the night.
Oh, that would be delightful. If you want me to co-host that with you, I will. That'll be fun.
Absolutely.
That's a good time.
Yeah. So
also, speaking of shilling, though, it is important. Chloe could use your financial support as well. I support her for $5 a month on Subscribestar. You should too. If you need to support the people that are in your life that make the kind of content that pleases you and you get enjoyment from. With the few dollars that we have to go around, it's very important to support the people that are like you and that build the kind of culture you want to see in the future. So you should definitely consider spreading around $1, $3, $5 a month to all of the content creators that enrich your life and give you quality entertainment. I do that to all the creators that I value. So you should consider doing the same.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, thank you very much. If you like doing that, yes, super chats are open. And if you want to keep your money away from YouTube, then there is Subscribestar where you can leave a tip. And there'll be or sign up and get the early access exclusive content, all that goodness. And you can request movies. I really like doing requested movies where people have thrown a few bucks or a few pounds my way. It's one of those nice things I can do for people. So I'm always happy to do that. So links for that are also in the description. Well said, yes. And I'll just say for TCG, who isn't here, because he's on holiday, he will be back. He's not dead. He's not locked in my basement. He would appreciate that if he were here. Yeah, go on to TCG's channel, because the last one he put out, it was a bit of a beauty. It's doing well. Wrestling fans, he's covering what happened with Chris Benoit, and I thought he did a really good job of it. I found it quite moving.
It's a very sad story, the Chris Benoit thing. Very sad.
yeah, I had a completely different take on it, and a very shallow take on it. I thought it was all down to one thing. TCG did some great work on it, and I want to see him getting a bit of love. So I think that's all the kind of pre-show shilling. Just want to say hi, as I'm seeing all the lovely regulars in the chat. Hi guys, it's so good seeing you back every week. I love seeing these familiar names. It's got that community feeling. And,
it is. It's
also
lovely. I recognize everyone in the chat so far. It's nice to see some friends.
Excellent. And Baldwin from Bethune, I remember you from last week. Welcome back. It is good to see you.
I think Baldwin's new, isn't he?
Yeah, relatively new. And unless I forgot or you've changed your name, I know we do that a fair bit around here. Good to see you. Anyway, so let's get into it a little bit about the Autopsy of Jane Doe. Just a quick overview here. The production, I wouldn't say is particularly remarkable. It's a good bit of growth. This is from a Norwegian director called André Øvredal, who came onto the scene with a found footage movie by the name of Troll that was, I think, pretty darn competent back in the day. It was a bit more ambitious than a typical found footage movie, and it was coming out when you kind of had a glut of them. But he managed to stand out with it. And on the basis of
it was
that,
also released as Troll Hunter some places. That's how it was pitched to me.
Oh, that's true. Yes, Troll Hunter in the European release. I'm going to confess, I couldn't actually get through that. I didn't like it. It's I didn't get all the way through it.
I have seen no other works by André. Okay. The only one that I've ever heard of by André besides this one was the Troll or Troll Hunter movie, and it got suggested to me by some people because a lot of people that I know really like found footage movies. That's probably why they recommended it to me. But I haven't seen it. But as a general rule, I don't enjoy found footage movies, even the ones people say are great. So I guess they're just not for me.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. Some people really like them. I find them, the good ones are quite rare.
I did like the Deer Hunter one, though. The one about the guy that is being terrorized by an evil spirit in the woods when he's I might just feel sympathetic to him because he's a rural, rustic Appalachian deer hunter guy. And it's basically like Blair Witch, but he's just an Appalachian deer hunter all alone out in the woods, and really, really spooky, scary stuff starts happening to him. And it's pretty good, I guess, but I probably just liked it because I recognized his accent, I recognized where he was and what he was doing, and I don't know, I just felt a little sympathy with it, I guess. But I thought it was pretty well done. That's the only found footage movie I've seen in like 6 or 8 years that I actually enjoyed.
Was it Antlers? We got a question here.
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't even know what it was on Tubi, the free movie service. Me and my husband screen a lot of just crappy, low budget horror stuff on Tubi all the time. I don't remember what it was called. I don't know if it was Deer Hunter or, Murgood. I don't know. I don't know if it was the one that had a Wendigo in it. The spoiler alert. I think that it was just a hostile spirit and or some evil wood spirit. So that definitely would fit like some of the Wendigo legends or whatever, but I don't remember what it was called. And it's been like 3 years since I've seen it. So I don't recall a lot about it, but anyway, I just brought that up because you brought up found footage and Troll came up. I don't want to derail us too much on that, but if you can find out what that movie is and you like found footage movies, give it a whirl. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. Nice. I'll throw a couple out there myself while we're on it. Butterfly Kisses, which we covered in the early days, I found really creative, quite meta, in a good way. I really liked Graveyard Shift. Was it Graveyard? No. Grave Encounters. No, Grave Encounters too.
I have both of those in my collection. Those are hilarious. They're
great,
fun,
aren't they?
Yeah. They're low budget, fun, bad movies. It's kind of a spoof that doesn't take itself too seriously. It's a found footage movie about ghost hunting reality TV shows, and it's really funny and cute and a little campy. Those are good. I have both of them because they made a sequel too.
Yeah, I saw both of them, and I really enjoyed it.
Me
to be honest,
me
that
too.
was nice. And maybe controversially, I'm a bit thrown off here. I've seen Dr. Prepper has said that the director of Butterfly Kisses passed away. Oh, that's a bit sad. I will have to look into that. That's a
I
bit
never saw Butterfly
surprising.
Kisses, but I am aware of it, and I know that you did a video on it in the long ago.
The director actually joined in the chat. It's an independent movie, and I was very impressed with it. He put a lot of thought into it. And obviously, as people will expect, another found footage, Wreck, was very good. I'll have to look into this post stream, Dr. Prepper. I didn't know that. I mean, we're on a bit of a tangent here, but I think we should also mention, since this was in the news this week, William Friedkin passed away, which was a bit surprising, really. I don't know if you'd seen that in the news years.
No, I don't keep up with Hollywood news. My husband does, but I just don't care for it.
No, fair enough. I've just been told by a few people I had completely missed it. It was actually someone in the comments, because I don't tend to look at the news, but I would say a great directing talent in the Stanley Kubrick mold, but at the same time with that, a very intense figure.
Interesting.
And how can I say, I was thinking about this earlier. There was a sort of director who was, there we go. It was John Landis. We were talking about this when we covered the Twilight Zone movie, and how John Landis's career was kind of sidetracked when there was a fatality due to on-set. Well, there's 3 fatalities due to him. Running a very unsafe and illegal set. And
I remember. Yeah. It was because I was alive when it happened. It was big news.
Yeah. Oh, it would be. And I was mentioning that just, he got a lot of condemnation, but I think, there are a fair few directors for who did roll the dice in similar ways, and Friedkin was one of them. I mean, it's probably, he could have very seriously injured a lot of actors on the set of The Exorcist. I mean, it's probably not the time to look into it, but he was a great talent.
Well, speaking of great talent, we have a man by the name of Brian Cox in this film, and I think that Brian Cox is always a treat. I've loved him in everything I've seen him in, and this movie is no different. I thought his acting really carried this film, because this film is a character piece. It only has a handful of actors in it, and every single one of them does an amazing job. Even the lady who played the corpse. Because playing a corpse with this level of detail of body manipulation, especially with the head and face stuff they did, that actress did grade A non-responsive acting. Like, I want you to imagine laying completely nude on a cold table while an entire film crew is filming you, and 2 other actors are lifting up your nude body and moving your legs around and looking in your snatch and lifting your face up and opening your mouth and putting their fingers in your holes and stuff. Like, that is really, it would be very hard to not flinch or twitch and be completely still and non-responsive during that. So the lady that played the corpse did an amazing job.
Oh, she absolutely did. Let's give her the call out here. She was, Olwen Kelly. So a dancer and a yoga enthusiast, which is how she had that control and that body and that presence. And let's just put out that amazing decision, a brave decision, but the correct decision by the director to use a real person as much as possible. Because if it was how many things have we seen years where it's a dummy?
And it really does take something away when the corpse is not a real corpse or a real person. It really takes something away. And the actress did a fantastic job, because even though she has no spoken lines at all, and really other than a few tiny makeup shots, which probably aren't even her, the actress doesn't even move her mouth or take any movements at all until the very end. We'll get to that. But she did an amazing job of really selling being a corpse. And also, we need to comment on how good the makeup was for the corpse. They did a good job of making her look dead, because I grew up around a funeral home, and I worked in a cemetery and a funeral home for years. At first I was going to be a mortician, but then I moved away from that, went on to other things. So I'm pretty familiar with what goes on at a cemetery and in a funeral home. And corpses often do look like that. And they did an excellent job of making her look genuinely dead the entire film. It was quite nice.
Yeah, the completely relaxed face, but still she managed to put, just her positioning managed to get some expressions in. very,
And I'm sure the
very
direction
well
had a
done.
bit to do with that too, because this director clearly is not a hack. Like, he's good at what he does, at least for this movie. I can't speak for his other works, but he
Oh,
really did well on this film.
he really did. He's made so many good choices that we'll cover. I just think that's a pivotal one. If they were cutting between a real person and a dummy, it's that big cue, hey, something's gonna happen. Whereas with a real person, you're constantly on edge. Is she gonna move? You're watching for her to flinch kind of the whole movie. You are kept unsure, and it's just genius decision. It's kind of like if
Very
you watch an old school animation, you can tell what was background and what was animated. And so when you see something that should be in the background that's clearly animated, you're like, okay, that's going to get interacted with.
And it's the same way for us gamer nerds that have been playing games for years. Remember back in the 90s and early aughts when point and click adventure games, survival horror games, you could tell what you could interact with or what was going to move, because it would have to be a polygonal model, and it wasn't just pre-rendered background art. So you could tell the difference just by eyeballing it. You're like, oh, well, here's a room, and the only 3D object in the room is that coffin over there. Maybe a monster's going to come out of it, like that kind of thing. And but like you said, it alleviates that subconscious identification of what's real and what isn't by having the actress play the corpse the whole movie, because in your back brain you know that she is capable of moving and speaking at any moment, and so that adds a lot to the sort of subtle suspense and tension that's built the whole film.
Yeah, it also you're not going to emotionally connect to a doll, a dummy, the way you would to an actress. And a lot of the film, let's not say we are. I was sort of emotionally connecting and sort of feeling sympathy with Jane Doe. I wouldn't do that if she were an obvious dummy, you know?
Yeah, and we'll get to the sympathies of the Jane Doe entity and character later when I have some criticisms. But for the most part, yes, I fully agree with that. It does, using a real person, also, like we talk about subconsciously, like you've talked about this many times on your channel, I know, where subconsciously you need something about your film to grip the audience, or they're just not going to care and they're not going to engage with it. And yes, this really does help.
Excellent, yeah. So, let's say, in short, the development of this film, Guy did a great found footage movie that was creative, ambitious, unusual. That was Troll Hunter. And following that, he that got the confidence in him to make this. He did not have a lot of money for this at all. It's very low budget. And so it was designed to fit the budget that it had. And as a result, it did okay. It was still profitable at the box office, even though it's more of a sleeper hit. It managed to pick up when it got coverage on channels like Red Letter Media, and but it was not shown widely, so it was only able to take 6 million at the box office. But it really got extra attention on the director André Øvredal, and so from this he kind of got connected with Guillermo del Toro and went on to make a film that, I'm going to be honest, I didn't actually like, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which I think was, whereas this was a bit more creative and original, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, it had the feeling of a studio going, hey, Stranger Things is popular. Can we do that? Can we take this story but make it Stranger Things and then make it for like PG level? Can you do that, guys? Like, it was a gorgeous design, but I felt he hadn't been able to tell his own story. So it looks as beautiful as the Autopsy of Jane Doe does, but the story isn't there, whereas this has that. And part of the reason that his follow-up looks so good is because he's working with a chap called Roman Osin, who's his cinematographer. He was his cinematographer on Autopsy of Jane Doe, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, his 2020 film Mortal, I haven't seen that, and his upcoming one, Last Voyage of the Demeter, which is feeding into the Dracula myth. And I saw someone was actually excited about that. Was it Marina? You said you were excited about that one. Or was it Essie? I saw someone mention Last Voyage of the Demeter coming up. I say I am interested in that one. He'll probably do an interesting job on it. Yes. So basically, in short, it's a good story of an independent guy proving his worth and then being able to do more ambitious projects. Kind of like Christopher Smith, who we were showering praise on previously. This was originally meant to have Martin Sheen in the father's role, in the role that Brian Cox took. I'm so glad that didn't happen.
Me too.
I think Martin Sheen would not play it with the subtlety that Cox does, who brings so much maturity to it.
Yes. Brian Cox, first of all, the writing of the movie is good. Like the people who wrote the characters and wrote the dialogue, they were professional writers. They've worked on Walking Dead. They're clearly not hacks. They wrote a solid, tried and true character story where you make characters, they discover something horrible or new, and they either have an arc or they get defeated by it. And there's a bit of both in this screenplay. So the plot is very successful. It's very well written, and they did a good job of making a successful version of a good formula without doing anything new or that different that deviates from normal screenplay storytelling. I thought that this was just a very successful, tight, well done script.
Yeah, well, it's very tight. You know, if you go on Wikipedia, it tells you this is 99 minutes long, which threw me off because mine is like 87 minutes. This is a tight movie.
Mine's credits and all. Mine was bang on 90 minutes, so it's like, and the movie itself a little less than that. So I don't know what the 99 minutes is about. Like, what's missing? I don't understand. Maybe a European release or a North European release had an extra scene or two. I don't know, but mine was credits and all. I was done in like, I think 88 minutes, something like that.
I was trying to find it, and the closest I've got on the BBFC site is an 83-minute version that came out in 2017 on Home Entertainment.
They probably cut out some of the graphic stuff then.
Yeah, I could see that. So that's that was physical media and streaming initially, and then very shortly after, also 2017. Okay, so March 2017, we've got an 83-minute version, rated 15, and then there's in February 2017, the cinema release was 86 minutes. But evidently, what we've got is the cinema version, at least, because otherwise it doesn't match up. So we clearly got the cinema version for home release. Sorry, folks, if you come to this channel, we will be checking this on the BBFC website. We dig into this for very questionable reasons. When
you were talking about, go ahead. Sorry,
I was just going to say, I like that you looked up the writers. As I said, so quick credit to them. That was Richard Nang and Ian Goldberg. There it is. And they've done work on just genre TV shows, the Walking Dead series. It kind of reminded me of, I'm gonna get the names wrong, but one of them is, I want to say James Wong, who had a writing partner, and he was on the X-Files all the time. If that name's going to be familiar to a lot of people. And they sort of proved themselves on that, and then they got to write their own movies. And so one of the things they had to do was they did Final Destination 2. They was just said, okay, look, you can write movies, but can you do our genre sequel thing? And they said, fine.
No, that was Final Destination 3. I have studied the Final Destination series. The X-Files writers that were chosen to do the Final Destination stories, I'm fairly certain that the good one, which is the one they wrote, was the third one, I think. Let me check, because me and my husband dug through those last year and we watched all 5, and none of them are very good, but the one that the X-Files people did was by far the best one. And I think that was 3, but if it wasn't 3, it was 2, but I'm pretty sure it was 3.
No worries, give it a check. I want to be accurate, and let's get the names of those guys because they were interesting. I was trying to remember what it was they did after that.
I have IMDb open. I'll just look it up for us while we're live here.
Thank you. And I see chat remembers. Murgoot remembers Wong. There we go. Murgoot, who was his writing partner?
Yeah, I was right. It's 3.
Wait, there we go. All right.
It was Glenn Morgan, James Wong, and Jeffrey Riddick. Yeah. Mhm.
Yes, that's it. The second you said it, it was, oh yeah.
And James Wong even has
Mhm.
the director credit for Final Destination 3. It was his project.
Nice. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So this writer setup sort of reminded me of those guys.
Indeed.
The classic. You do the genre work. You just show you can produce a regular script, and then you can be creative. And they got to do that here. And just as you said, they trimmed the fat ones. Yes. How easy would it have been for them to get this over 90 minutes with like just a few scenes of like people in a car talking?
Oh yeah. Yeah, this script, the reason why I described it as tight, there is no fat to trim off this story. It is, every scene is, in my opinion, necessary and exactly as long enough as it needs to be. There's no filler, there's no bloat, there's no pointless character building like you see in a lot of we just need to fill up time, like, you know, with all the big TV shows, like everything from Lost to Walking Dead and The Wire and all these big TV shows. They have a lot of bloat because, you know, they know they're going to have to make 15 or 20 episodes a year, so they got to fill the time slot. But so these guys understand the difference of filling a time slot and what is necessary for the narrative. And there is no fat on this. This is a lean, tight, in-shape script that could do a 26K.
Very, very well said. And, you know, with all that said, we are going to go full into spoilers, as you would expect. I know there's a few people who said they don't mind the spoilers, but I just want to make it clear we are spoiling the whole film so that we can bring you that detail. And with that spoiler warning given, and remembering 31 minutes in, as I should, to say hi to everyone on the replay. Hi, people on the replay. Sometimes I remember you guys 2 hours in. Tonight, 31 minutes. That's not bad for me. Sorry.
Super Nanny is proud.
I've got to have a little note. Say hi to replay, folks. Sorry. All right. Yes. Would you do the honor of doing the pint of Guinness summary for everyone who wants the rough overview?
Let me hold on. Let me put up what I'm working on. I'm doing some hand reloading here. Let me put my shells up. Okay.
I'm ready for it. All
right. This movie is about a small town funeral or a mortuary service of a father and a son. It is a family business that has been around for a couple of generations, maybe 3, 4. Brian Cox plays the father, and let me look up the actor's name that plays Austin. I have forgotten it. It is Emil Hirsch. Emil Hirsch also did an excellent job. All the actors in this did a great job. It's basically just Brian Cox and Emil Hirsch. The other actors are barely in it. Brian Cox and Emil Hirsch play father and son, respectively. And the movie opens up with a very bizarre murder scene of the town sheriff and a bunch of the forensics people looking inside a regular like New England home of a bunch of people that are bizarrely dead. Some people have melee wounds. Some people have bullet wounds. And the whole house is just a chaotic mess. And there's no forensic clue of how these people got killed. There's no sign of forced entry. There's no bullet holes in the walls other than where people are shooting and killing each other inside. And an entire family of people seemingly just went insane and killed each other. And down in the basement of this old home, there was, before the cops got there was already, it looks like they were either doing some remodeling downstairs or going to expand the basement. And digging up out and coming up out of the dirt that was freshly dug is the top of the torso and the head of the Jane Doe corpse. And it is taken to the father and son, and the sheriff of the film clearly knows the Brian Cox character. Tommy is his name. And the sheriff says, this is bizarre. The media is all over me. I'm going to have answers on this. You're my best forensics guy, probably in a small town, the only good forensics guy, because that's how it goes. And the sheriff says, please, I know you're going to have to work all night, but I'm going to have something to tell the media because they're going to be all over this, and I have absolutely nothing to tell them. So the son, Austin, has plans to go out with his girlfriend who he's been with for a couple of years, and it's revealed to us via private conversation between the girlfriend and the son that the son doesn't want to carry on the family business. But we had a scene previously where the father and son bonded. And that's one of the things I loved about this movie's presentation, the bond of the father and son, a father and his progeny bonding together over a family business. And it's shown that they deeply care for each other. And even though the son doesn't want to carry on the family business, he's genuinely interested in his father's work and genuinely cares for his father. So he hasn't told him yet that he wants to leave the family business. It's touching, it's real, and that little snippet in the first act, it touches on not just the eternal conflict of sons wanting to go out on their own and leave their father and their family, but also the modern conflict of children being lost to their family's traditions and the breaking of the chain of sons carrying on their father's work. So that's really nice. That was nice in the first act there. So moving us along, the movie's suspense is slow rolled very nicely. They get the corpse. It's really weird. There's not a blemish on her. The forensics begins. The son and the father speculate a little bit. They soon find out that she has broken wrists and ankles. She has internal trauma, they discover. There's internal scarring and damaging. There's damage to her lungs and a whole bunch of other things that they find as they start doing the autopsy. And it's interesting because they can tell something is weird and off, but these people are played completely straight-laced and completely normal. The normalcy of this movie is what really sells the suspense, because we are shown nothing about anything supernatural for a very, very long time in the film. So the viewer knows going into it, if you paid attention to the advertising, that it's going to be a spooky dooky horror movie. So there's going to be supernatural stuff that happens, but it's handled very, very well by the director and the actors, because for like the first 45 minutes of the movie, nothing spooky or supernatural really happens, just really subtle things. Like every time that they manipulate the corpse, every time that they go to open up her mouth or to manipulate her, very subtle things happen, like there's static on the radio or there's wind outside. And since we're in spoiler territory here, about halfway through the movie, they start hearing wind and thunder and a storm outside, and they hear talk on the radio that, oh, a really big storm's coming through. We got a flood watch and all of that. And at the end of the movie, when it's all over, you hear in the background, and if those of you that really pay attention in movies, you'll notice this and you'll already know what I'm going to say. You hear the same guy who was on the radio the night before talking about the storms, talking about, yeah, it's another beautiful day. We're on a 4 or 5 day streak of beautiful weather here and blah, blah, blah. So even the radio and even the weather was all I almost said the F word on your stream. It was all, it was all a mental illusion, a phantasm created by the evil of that haunts this corpse. So that was very interesting, picking up on that. So the creepy, spooky stuff, they find out later in the film in Act 3 that this entity, this spirit of this woman, is bound to her corpus. And let's go ahead and skip into towards the end of Act 2 and the beginning of Act 3. Just to move on the synopsis here. Some of the things that they discuss, because they have to find answers. Now, previously in the film, in the first act, the father says to the son, whenever the son asks a question, well, who would do this or why, about a different corpse they were talking about that was shot or mangled in some way. And the father says, it's not for us to figure out the why. We only deal with the what, and we put it in the report, and it's for other people to determine the why. The only thing that we care about in this room is what we can physically prove and what we can put on paper. And so that's what that is the father's no nonsense. I've worked with dead bodies for 40 years. This is how we handle things down here in the room with the dead. And so then when the sheriff asks him a favor, he says, I have to have something to tell people. That's when the father says, okay, we're going to have to speculate. We got to come up with something. So when they start finding out the forensic evidence about the corpse, he starts saying things like, well, maybe she was abused. Maybe she was part of human trafficking. Maybe this was some type of cruel assassination by a cartel or something like that. And so these kind of things come up in the speculation. So the father, you can tell, is already outside his comfort zone, being put on the spot.
I think he just finds such weird stuff. If I can just interrupt with a character detail.
Oh, certainly. Please do.
Thank you. So like the first several corpses that are talked about, they're all ones where there's a superficially obvious cause. And the father tells the son, you've got to look beneath the surface. There is a cause you have not noticed. So they're setting you up for this idea that there will be a hidden cause that is not obvious. It's a challenge. And that helps sort of propel the curiosity of the father. Because he's just been able to lay down the knowledge, like, no, this person didn't die in a house fire. It was blunt force trauma made to look like an innocent thing. No, this person didn't commit Minecraft on themselves. They were poisoned and shot afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. And so that starts to pay off because the father is having to help the sheriff out. Tommy, the father, is having to help out the sheriff. So Austin gets to lean into his curiosity because his curiosity is the why. Because a lot of us, we remember, those of you that are older like me, you remember what it's like when you're young. You want to know why. You quest for the why of things. And some of us don't give that up, myself included. I'm still digging into the why of a lot of things. That's why I like philosophy and politics and things like that. But the son and the father get to have bonding over trying to discover the why together. And that's a beautiful part of the movie too. And so as they are piecing together the why, they move into the open cavity organ inspection of the autopsy towards the end of Act 2 and the beginning of Act 3. And they start finding bizarre incongruities that cannot be explained, such as the lungs look like lungs that were burned and singed by inhaling superheated air and dying in an active fire, but there's not a blemish on her body. And so that's extremely weird. They find weird things in her intestines. They find odd scarring on her organs. Again, nothing to suggest that on the outside. And I have a criticism about the tattoos that they find on her, but they find some tattoos inside her, but not outside of her. It's very, very interesting. For those of you that are squeamish about body horror and very visceral things, I'm sure you had trouble with certain parts of this movie. It is very visceral, and especially the breaking of the bones and the casual moving around of organs and pulling organs out of bodies and snipping them free and stuff like that. It's very visceral. And once they get the organs out, the boy notices that the blood doesn't behave right. The blood that is in the test vial leaks out on its own and makes a mess. The organs that were in a thick plastic bag have become weird and soupy, and they bled out the top of the bag and made a mess in the fridge. And then they noticed that in less than an hour after they've been outside the corpse, all of the organs that looked fresh, like they were freshly dead, they have experienced rapid decay, and they have decayed to just baseline substrate filth in just less than an hour. So the parts they take out of the body experience rapid decay and become just ancient in minutes. And so that's the first real supernatural thing that you can detect in the movie.
Yeah,
And
you accelerate from the mysterious, the hard to explain, into the increasingly just like full-on violations of how you understand reality, and it amps up and very well done.
And we'll jump now into the power of Act 3. They find some religious iconography that suggests she was perhaps killed as a witch by religious people. And I'll get to my criticisms of that later at the end. And they speculate that she was destroyed by Christian religious rituals that were trying to either cast out a demon while also punishing her and crucifying her for being an evil, wicked witch. And they speculate on that. And then when they go to start doing I forget which organ extraction they were going to do next. I think it was the brain or something like that. All of the lights in the room violently explode. Things fly off of shelves like in Poltergeist. The doors to there's an official word for that in a mortuary, and I forget what it is. The cabinets, is it corpse cabinet? Is that the official word? I forget.
I should know. It's on the tip
I know
of my
that.
tongue.
I know that word. I even said it back when I worked in a cemetery. Oh, what is that? Anyway, the corpse caddies, the corpse cabinets, those fly open and the bodies fling out. But all of this happens in a couple of seconds. And so, since they're downstairs, it is absolutely pitch black. And in just seconds, all of the sound stops. The son and the father start talking to each other. They turn on a light. And one of the most beautiful lines in the movie happens here. The straight-laced father, who has been a voice of reason, and even earlier in the film, he said, once you start a job, you finish it. Don't give up. When you start something, you see it through to the end. And the first thing Brian Cox says is he looks at his son with pants-shitting terror and says, we have to get the F out of here. And he runs for the door.
One of the best moments in the film.
One of the best moments in the film, yes. So it shows really good how realistic people would act, because, you know, in real life, you know that magic isn't real. You know that there's not spooky ghosts. You know that the woods aren't full of Slender Man and Bigfoot. You know that. So, but in the movie, these characters also know that. And so when confronted, like, imagine what it would be like if all of a sudden, in the scariest, spookiest way, the scariest ghosts and the scariest movie monsters you can imagine become real to you in a way you can't deny all at once. You would probably flee the scene in pants-shitting terror too. And that's exactly how these characters act. And it is a very real, very human expression. And I thought that was very nice. It was nicely done. What did you think about that part?
I loved it. It was just character growth, wasn't it? It's just as he was the guy who was, he had his rules, he had his situation straight-laced. I don't speculate. I just say what I see. He can't help himself have his methods sort of twisted by what he's seeing, because it just doesn't fit into his world. In this, he's got his rule, but then he's got the better values. He wants his son to be safe. So he's just, he recognized the situation, get out. And it is a challenge for the film. Like, you've got to break up the autopsy.
And they did that well, because
they managed to do it. They give them everything goes to heck, and then he makes a sensible decision. Like, we're hightailing it out of here.
Yeah.
But then,
and they find out that because of the storm, the power is out. Now, keep in mind, the storm is an illusion. So is the power being out an illusion too? But you don't know that yet. You don't know that this is the corpse and the evil, hostile spirit that's bound to the corpse. You don't know that everything they're experiencing is her using phantasms and illusions and psychotic mind tricks to make them all go crazy. So the elevator doesn't work, so they flee to the office. The father gets on the phone to the sheriff's office. He says, you have to get down here, sheriff. Bad things are happening. And then there's static and the phone cuts out. The father is scared. And then something that they talked about earlier in the film, the girlfriend of the son, who really doesn't matter, she leaves early in the film. She's a curious, spunky, cute young girl, and she's, wants to see the corpses earlier in the film. And the son is like, no, they're gross. You don't want to see them. You don't want to see them. And the father's like, oh, go ahead, let her see them. And so the aforementioned corpse that Anne Heroed, that supposedly Anne Heroed but was poisoned, they wheel him out for the daughter to have a look. This is at the beginning of the film, and he has a little bell tied to his ankle, and she says, why is there a bell tied to his ankle? And the father gets to give an anecdote of, well, back in the day, sometimes there were conditions where people could seem dead but weren't, so before they were buried for a day or two, we would tie a little bell on their ankle, so if you heard it jingling, you'd know that they weren't ready to be put in the ground yet, and you could get them back out. So then when they're in the office, the lights flicker on and off, and they hear shuffling in the hall and a slight tinkling of that bell. And that is a beautiful payoff.
I was just looking for, I had a picture of the bell, and I was just I was sure I had a screen cap of it. Oh, gosh.
You probably do. It's a very you thing to do, to have a screenshot of that.
Yeah, I just thought it was a great shot, and it's part of because the bell motif is something that they use in a Pavlovian way to make you scared. I just thought it was really good to get that set up. Right, I've got it there. Right, sorry. Old foot with a bell on it coming up on your screens. Any second. There's got to be a better way of doing this. There we go.
There is, and I can teach you it offline.
Wait. Okay, cool.
So anyway, they after the electricity flickers and the phone call to the sheriff's office sputters out and the phone goes dead, they hear shuffling in the hallway outside their office, and they hear the bell, and of course they're both absolutely terrified. Excuse me. And then something starts beating on the door to the office. They barricade the door with anything they can grab, a filing cabinet, a table, whatever. And earlier when he was working on the corpse, the father accidentally cut his wrist a little bit. on one of the sharp edges of the rib cage, and so he goes. He notices that it's bleeding, and the bandage has come undone while moving the stuff in front of the door. When he goes into the bathroom, the first real supernatural attack happens in the bathroom. The door slams shut. Immediately after, the son sees an invisible force grab his father by the neck and jerk him into the darkness. The door slams shut. The father gets beaten up and hit in the ribs and smashed against the wall and thrown to the floor. The father screams in terror, and he sees this hideous demonic visage, which the viewer only gets to see for about a third of a second. There's only a handful of frames of this in the shot, and it's a glassed over white eye with a burned, charred face. And as they speculated, it looked like she was burnt at the stake. It looked like she was bound and beaten and tortured and then burnt at the stake. And she had cold, white, dead eyes that look like that after being dead for a long, long time. All of the color filters out of them. So that's the visage that he is shown in this poltergeist attack that savages the father. So immediately, the father starts talking about it like he 100% believes. He doesn't say it. He doesn't say a force. He says she and her. He says it's her. She's mad at us. What does she want? And so they talk themselves into they have to get away from here because they're shit scared. So the power is flickering on and off. They go up to leave. There are old storm doors, and they try to leave, but they can only get them open a little bit. And they see that the horrific rainstorm outside, which they both see, and water comes in through the door. They can see it, and there is the old oak tree or whatever they called it outside, fell down, and it is blocking the fire doors, the storm doors, and they can't get out. So they say, well, the power's on right now. Let's try the elevator. The elevator works a little bit. They get into it, but spooky dooky Bell zombie is coming for them in the hallway. The father grabs the fire axe out of he breaks the glass. He gets the fire axe out. The zombie comes to get them, and so he axes it in the chest, and then the power goes out in the elevator, and they can't go up. So they go back out into the hall, and it's not the zombie. It's the screenshot that we see right now on the screen. Apparently, it was not a shuffling zombie. It was the girlfriend. How did the girlfriend get in? Why is she even here? They would have heard her come through the elevator. She wouldn't have come through the storm doors. There's a tree on the storm doors. How does she get here? So there's
I love that you picked up on that. It's such a good clue if you're paying attention that the electricity's working. There is no storm. Yeah, I love that you picked up on that.
Yeah, and like this is the beginning of where most viewers that are paying attention will start to realize this entire thing explains the opening scene of where they found the body, and the forensic detectives and the sheriff wondering what the hell happened in this house. Why did 5 people go nuts and murder each other with knives and guns? What happened? It was a family that knew each other, and they all murdered each other in the same house. So now you're starting to put together this corpse is a source of evil. It plays mind tricks on you to get you to kill the ones you love. This is like 50 minutes or 55 minutes into the movie. This is deep into the movie before they actually answer any of the questions that they've set up yet. So this is a very important scene for those of you paying attention. And of course, it's very emotional. The son cries. The father almost cries. They sit down in the elevator together, and there's a touching moment of them talking about the dead wife, and the father says, "It's my fault." And then after just a few seconds of that, the screenwriters know what they're doing. They don't waste your time. The men have to man up and be heroes. There's nowhere for them to go. They can't get out. So they say, we either have to destroy her or find out how to defeat this. And the only way that we can do that is to go back into that damn room and go back to that corpse and finish the autopsy and figure out why this is happening. We have to do it or it's going to kill us. So they bravely go back into the autopsy room. They saw the skull off of the corpse. They start looking at the brain. They take a little slice out of the brain to put it under the microscope, which they've done with the other organs, by the way, so it's not weird. They take a little piece of it, they put it under the microscope, and apparently it has active blood cells and active brain cells. The brain is still alive. And so he staggers backwards, and they say, it's like she's still alive. So they speculate that is there just something magically keeping her paralyzed and she can actually feel all of this torturous things being done to her, but for whatever supernatural reason, she just can't die. She just has to feel all this pain. And so the father wants to save his son. So he looks into the dead eyes of the corpse and says, I want my son to live. Take me instead. And then it happens. A truly grotesque supernatural thing happens. You start seeing all of the wounds, all of the organ damage, all of the broken wrists and ankles, the burned lungs, the savaged organs, the stabbings, the beatings, the burnings. All of those effects start happening to the father. He cringes and winces on the floor, and smoke comes out of his mouth, and his limbs get mangled. And it's beautifully done. And it's all practical effects too. It's not just CGI garbage. Like, it looks really good. And as that's happening, you see the corpse start repairing itself. Like it's a magic dark Sith ritual with like sympathetic violent healing from a dark Sith lord using the dark side to heal himself by hurting others. And the corpse starts repairing itself. And so the father dies in the son's arms. Tommy dies in Austin's arms. And this is where we're at the end of the film. Anything you want to jump in here, because there's a lot to talk about?
Yeah, there was a really good detail that Waifu noticed, which is in the change in the character that we see completed in this. Sorry, the change in Jane Doe that we see completed in this scene, when the eyes go from the glassy grey to a darker brown as she's sort of fully healed again. What Waifu noticed that in the sort of midpoint, after the first time Cox is given a beating, the contact lenses change and they're just a little less grey. They look a little more alive. And it's sort of, oh, that's a nice detail. It's just unsettling you a little bit more, like well, we shouldn't say which, really. Let's just stick with Jane Doe. We don't really know what she is, but as a corpse,
we speculate that she was indeed a powerful witch that was a master of dark forces, and perhaps she's not even a person at all, because we're never told, by the way, but the movie makes it clear it's one of two things. It's either a really super evil, unkillable witch, because when they look up the Bible verse in Leviticus, it talks about necromancy and undead and witches and things like that. So she's either some kind of super powerful, unkillable witch that did some satanic ritual to make herself an unkillable necromancer, or she's just a corpse. The woman who was the woman is long dead and long departed, and some evil entity like a demon or a devil or a cosmic nightmare beast of suffering and torture is what inhabits this corpse now. But it's indistinguishable between the two, because the corpse only does evil, sadistic, horrible things. So we don't know if it's an evil woman and we don't know if it's a demon or some kind of nightmare creature. It's never explained, and it doesn't need to be explained. And I'm glad that it wasn't explained. I think the vagary is better.
Oh, 100%. If this were a Blumhouse production, the father, and I really should remember the name. I never do this. I was Brian Cox. Tommy Tilden is the father. His son is Austin. So Tommy goes to the books constantly through the film. He looks up a plant in the book. He's got a Bible that he looks up. You imagine a worse film would have had him go for a worse film would have had him go for a weird, creepy witchcraft book and find an answer.
Right. Or he opens
even
the book
worse. Even worse. Austin would have gone on Reddit and found out.
Yeah. Austin would have gone on Reddit and looked up demons, and they would have found like a silly early 90s or early aughts movie where the protagonists look in an old library and find, oh, look, it's this demon because it does these things. Like, they didn't take that path, and I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they left
you and I would have had Buffy flashbacks.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, Giles, is it you?
Yeah.
Oh, bless.
I have a lot of things to say about the details, but I want to get through the synopsis first. We're almost at the end. Seemingly, the evil entity or the witch is appeased because the hostile, unseen poltergeist force keeping the doors closed is released after the father is killed and the regeneration of the corpse is complete. And Austin, the son, flees. He flees. he hears the cops outside. He hears voices. He hears, I think, a fireman saying, hold on, Austin, we're going to get you out of there. We got to move this tree. And remember, there's no tree. There's no storm. So that also means there's no firemen. There's no cops outside. This is all just Austin's mind being screwed with still. So he's standing there and he turns around while he's waiting, and there is his dead father standing there. And it spooks him, and he staggers backwards, and paying off things that are introduced earlier in the film, just earlier in the scene, the banister at the top of the stairs to get to the storm doors creaks. It's clearly old and made of wood. When Austin staggers backwards, he hits it with his full force of staggering, and it cracks and gives way. Austin falls to his death and breaks his neck on the ground below. Every cast member is dead now. They're all dead. Emma, the girlfriend, Austin, the son, Tommy, the father. They're all dead. And so it cuts then. It's the next morning. There's not a cloud in the sky. There's no evidence of rain. And the big tree outside the home is still standing. And the detective and the sheriff, they walk inside, and it's the same mood, the same tone, and the same subtle ambiance music that the film started with. They're back to square one. And that's told to the viewer without a single word. It's beautiful storytelling, showing and not telling. They are back to square one. It's a bunch of people that knew each other and loved each other, murdered each other in a house with no signs of forced entry, and all the doors were open, and they could have left at any time, but they didn't. It's the exact same scene, and all of that is conveyed to us without a single word of dialogue. And whenever the thing is, when they look at the corpse, it's pristine. It is fresh, like they never even started the autopsy. There's nothing wrong with the corpse at all. And when you look around the room, most viewers wouldn't catch this because you're caught up in the moment. But when you look around the room, all of her organs that were taken out are gone. All of her blood that was spilled and sprayed around the room is gone. It's all gone. So all of that was a mind cloud too. All of that was an illusion. It was all this entity, whether it be a witch or a demon or some kind of hostile outsider, whatever. It was all in the minds of the victims. And so clearly all of the damage done to the room, all the things that were done, they did. She made them go crazy and destroy things and kill each other, all while she just laid there as a corpse on the table. And that's very subtle. And the best thing is that is not told to us. This is storytelling with showing and not telling, and it's perfect. You can tell that quality writers who know what a good story is and know how to tell it were at the helm of this screenplay. You can tell. And so the movie ends with the sheriff telling whoever it is that's going to take the corpse somewhere else to be looked into. He says, take it to so-and-so over in so-and-so, the next county over. I don't want this thing anywhere close to us. I want this thing gone out of my county. Just get it out of here. I don't care. Because
what did you think of that response? What of his move there?
I think that is a very human, very realistic response for a small town sheriff to take, because I've, like TCG can tell you, small town sheriffs are more often than not good people driven by care than they are driven by what people in bigger cities are driven by. That's why the feds and city cops and the FBI and stuff have a lot of conflict with rural law offices. Is the sheriff just wants what's good for his small town. So he says, I don't know what happened. Horrible things happen around this corpse. I'm not going to know. I don't want to confront this. I just want to get it out of my county because it's already killed 8 of my people. Get it out of here. And I think that's a very human, very realistic response by the sheriff. What do you think?
Oh, that's really interesting. I mean, well, I had one thought and then I had one off that. When you talked about the response in local law, you made me think of Silence of the Lambs. If you remember, there's a scene where Jack Crawford and Clarice Starling, they visit a rural place where a girl's body's found, and the whole police department has turned up. And it's kind of used as a Clarice Starling is like a woman in a male-dominated world. But the other meaning in the scene is just this absolute demonstration of how much they care about one of their own.
Yeah. And you can see that in this film too, because both this scene and the opening scene, it's not just the two on the screen here. There's like 15 people. There are forensics guys, there's cops, there are concerned citizens standing around. Like, this is a very good demonstration of what it would be like if a bunch of bizarre murders happened in a small town of like 5,000 people. People would talk. People would care. The sheriff would care because that's a big deal.
Straight there, as we saw at the opening. I'll get it up again quickly.
Sure.
We were shown, and we're kind of mentioned that the press will want to know, but we were also just shown first. Press is immediately on the scene. Loads of people are looking out. They want to know what's going on. These neighbors in the background that I think you can see my cursor. They're telling each other about what's going on. It's it's great. The other thought I had was, I like the sheriff kind of moving from, kind of like the father, like Tommy. He moves from the rational ground, the rational response, to the irrational one, the instinctual one, where he's just saying, just get it away from my people. I don't care.
Yeah, it's the exact same. It's the exact same thing we talked about earlier, where the straight-laced, I've seen corpses for 40 years. There's always something weird, nothing supernatural, to, oh my God, we have to get the F out of here. It's the same change in the sheriff, and it's a beautiful choice because the sheriff says, these are clearly horrible, inexplicable things that everything I know about rational reality cannot explain, and it all happens around this corpse. I immediately believe this corpse is the problem. Lizard brain, get it as far away from me as possible.
Based lizard brain. Listen to your lizard brain more often. Yeah. Oh, we should have said, actually, the sheriff there is played by Michael McElhatton, an Irish actor. You probably know him best from Game of Thrones as Roose Bolton. It's a small role. He does a decent job, I think, here. He's, for what he does, he brings a lot of reserve to it. So
and now we come to the feet. And now we come to the feet, which is the last part of the film.
Quentin, this is for you, big guy.
This is for you, Quentin. The last part of the film, when the driver of the corpse wagon is driving the corpse of this Jane Doe to the next county over just to get it away, the radio has some static on it, and it changes to play the same old-timey song as played the night before, to show that there's still supernatural crap going on. And the last little scene is a very cute, very comical, but very, very, very well done send-off right before it cuts to black and goes to credits. Is her left big toe wiggles just a little bit, and it plays the same Pavlovian bell, ding ding, as it played earlier when you saw the bell on the corpse's foot at the beginning. It is a beautiful little bow at the end of this package, and I thought that was just beautifully done. What did you think about that?
Oh, I mean, I think you did an amazing recap of it, and
well, thank you.
Yeah, it's that payoff just a little bit. It's like Inception for Joss Whedon. Just that little close up, and you're waiting for that moment. You're just wondering, and that's the only little payoff that they give you, and it's just enough. And it's all you need. It's all you need, and the addition of the bell is excellent. Pavlovian conditioning is the best way to do it. You're told from the start. In fact, just the way it was.
We didn't even touch on Chekhov's cat.
Oh, we'll get into the cat, because the cat is another great example of how details are paid off if you pay attention. You pick up disturbing details about the cat.
Right.
Just while I see it, I'll just take the moment to say, chat, since it came up, I see a lot of praise for Ravenous, and I'm happy to tell you Ravenous is already on the list. It was requested, and it's going to be in September. So Ravenous will be on the stream in September. So do not worry about that. Just interesting that that's come up apropos of nothing. I had to comment on it. So just for talking about amazing design, the way the bell was done, I might go off on this one a bit, so please forgive me. Is just
sure. Well, we're only at the hour mark. We've got plenty of time.
Sweet. Yeah, for scare design, it's so darn good. A bell is kind of it's a day-to-day thing. It's quotidian. It's nothing really remarkable, but you'll associate the bell, one, with Pavlov, and two, it's the idea of you most often think of it as like a door opening, someone coming in, someone arriving. So the use of a bell as something scary when you're not sure how safe you are, you feel your place is invaded, a bell is a really good thing. You can make it scary, and it comes with other connotations. They show you the bell first in a close-up on the first corpse and get you the idea that a corpse has a bell on its toe, and they tell you the history. And it's on the second corpse when the girlfriend is wanting to look at the under the sheet, yes, and see the grisly details, that Brian Cox deliberately rings the bell.
Yeah, he deliberately shakes the foot of the corpse to make the bell chime when the girlfriend goes to lift the sheet off the corpse's face, and she of course recoils and gasps, and they have a big laugh about it. It's funny. So it pays off so nicely. This is a very tightly written, finished product. This movie could have easily been 100 or 110 minutes long with a bunch of pointless filler. I'm very glad they chose not to do that. They kept it tight. They kept everything on point, and everything is paid off that needs to be paid off. It's very good. It's very good.
Yeah, they didn't waste anything. Like you say, they use it for a quick laugh and a tension release. But when they do the tension release on the bell, it's further cemented in your brain so that when you hear it next, you know what that bell means, and you are unhappy. You know that
you are very unsettled because you know that what that bell was on. It was on a corpse that was missing half of its head to a point blank shotgun blast, and they hear it shuffling down the hallway, jingling and jangling. So it's quite good. It's quite good the way they presented that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the cat.
All right, we'll talk about the cat. All right, I have a question after the cat.
If your question's about this, let's go ahead and do that now. Then.
All right, I just wanted to ask you. So this is a Norwegian director writing a story set in America.
It's in New England. Yeah.
New England, thank you. Yes, terrible English habit. It can be all America to me. I was like, wait, hang on, I know which state it is. Right, New England. I'll just get
New England isn't a state. New England is a handful of states in the northwest corner. It could be could be in Connecticut. This could be in Delaware. This could be in a lot of places. But by the style of the house, by the way the people talk and dress, this is clearly in a rural New England area.
Okay, that's good to know.
And remember with the soil, when they say it's from further up north. They live in the southern reaches of New England, maybe Philadelphia, maybe northern Ohio, something like that. They live in southern New England, and when they say it's from further north, they mean further north in New England.
Right.
And that's where the Salem witch trials happened, as you recall.
Yes, a good deal. So the weird thing, Norwegian director, American writers, set in New England, filmed in Kent in England. So I just wanted to know, like, is it convincing? Like, to me, it looks like I just think, yeah, that's New England, that's America. That looks like what I expect after.
Because remember, early America, this is why I feel like the people of Albion are brethren to me. The people that made real America, and the people who are the real heritage Americans, like myself and the good wasps here in Appalachia, we are still the same people as you and your folk in England. We're still the same as the rural folk in Scotland. And we build because we're the same biospiritual expression. So when you go to rural England or you go to rural Scotland, even to this day, even though we've been separated by like almost 300 years of ethnogenesis, there are so many things that are still the same. The homes look the same. They have a lot of the same traditions. They have a lot of the same organizing of things inside their homes, the same kind of buildings that they make. So when you look at old things like 100 and 200 years old in America, 100 years old in England is not that old. And homes like this are still going to litter rural England and rural Scotland. So when you look at stuff like this, it very much looks like old-timey New England America.
You know, I mean, I almost wonder, because of that sort of separation that we had and external influences on both cultures, you almost wonder, like, if the authenticity, the authentic biospirit, like those deep instincts to do things a certain way, to live a certain way, you almost wonder if that was kind of split, and like some bits are more authentic in America among Americans, and some bits are more authentic in England. Like the easiest trivial example I can think of is spelling. That we sort of used a French influence on our spelling, whereas the American style is more original to the way it was in England.
Yeah, like putting Z's instead of S's and things, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Or the U that we add in a lot of words. So color, we spell it with a U.
Well, when I write, I think that the traditional English way is much prettier. So I like writing in the English style.
Just
but that's because I like tradition.
Yeah. I just thought I would check because it's a kind of thing I would not really hear if someone had a bad American accent, but I know that could be like you would pick that up. The same way I'll pick up a sort of a dodgy English accent. So I wanted to check on that if that was feeling authentic.
It does, and remember that because of how accents work in America, not everyone can always be pegged down by their accent, because in America, it's very easy to get a job hundreds of miles away. And then the accent that you grew up with stays with you for the decades that you have working in a state hundreds of miles away. So you can't always go by American accent to know where someone's from like you can on the island of Albion. Because accents there, regional accents, are far more pronounced because they have hundreds and sometimes thousands of years of cultural history behind them. And so it's not quite the same in America. But the people that spoke in this movie, they clearly weren't Southern, and they weren't Midwestern, and they weren't Great Lakes region, and they weren't West Coast. So that only leaves a few types of accents. And these people in the movie, they spoke with a very neutral, barely accented American English, which puts them, in the reaches of where people talk like that, which is Ohio, Philadelphia, many places in New England, some places on the West Coast that aren't very westernized, I shouldn't say westernized, but like some places that in the West that haven't like picked up the West Coast TV accent, where it's like it's hard to explain to a Brit when you hear this sort of washed out, neutral, I have no accent American that says to you West Coast media personality voice. Like remember how in the olden days they sort of created this quote mid-Atlantic or West Atlantic, whatever it was they called this like early 1900s movie voice or radio voice. That's sort of a fake accent created in America to sound more prestigious and to sound more like you have more esteem. A lot of old actors spoke like that, and so it's kind of like that when you hear that kind of accent, it's a little fake or a little washed out. But no one in this movie spoke like that. They sounded like the actors that spoke sounded like they were where they were supposed to be in the narrative. And of course, remember, you had professional writers who wrote a lot of fiction for America, for fiction set in America. They knew what they were doing. So they got people to talk like they were from the area they were supposed to be from. They did a good job with that.
Oh, nifty. Shall we talk the cat?
Oh, yes, let's talk the cat. Chekhov's cat. So
Chekhov's cat,
at the beginning of the film, I glossed over it because we were going to talk about it later. At the beginning of the film, you think you're going to get your first spooky dookie, but it's really just a rat and a cat in a ventilation duct. And the son early in the film, he hears a spooky dookie and he finds out, hey, it's just the cat. And the cat jumps out of the vent, jumps out of the air vent and lands on the ground with a dead rat in its mouth. Ha ha, it's a fake spooky. The cat killed a rat. Now, remember all of the mind war. Remember all of the crap that this evil entity put these men through. They even made the father kill his own cat that he loved. Because he loved the cat, because it was the only thing left of his beloved dead wife that was left. And this evil sadistic spirit made him kill it. So whenever they're trapped in the office and being attacked by spooky dookies, one of the things that happens is the son hears some spooky stuff in the vent again. And so everybody thinks, oh, is it the cat again? Is it going to be a rat? Is it going to be whatever? And it looks like rats have attacked and mangled the cat and chewed its chest and chewed its stomach open. So the cat is in horrific pain. The father cries. The father takes the mangled, still alive cat into his arms. It whimpers. It's very, very sad. And it looks like Brian Cox it almost kisses the cat's head, or wants to, but doesn't. And he just takes it. He takes the cat's head in his arm and in the crook of his elbow and breaks its neck to put it out of its misery. Now, keep in mind, the cat's probably still alive. It's probably outside just having a good old cat time, because animals run away from spooky supernatural stuff. So the cat's probably not even in the building. The cat probably detected the supernatural stuff as soon as they brought the corpse in. So the cat's probably outside at a neighbor's house having a good time. So for those of you who love animals, the cat in the story probably lived. So anyway.
I really hope that's a reading. I had a different reading. Like, because the storm that isn't happening was already heard at this point. My very dark interpretation was that the cat was fine, and that it was put out of its misery for no reason. Like, that's my very dark interpretation of what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to be wrong. I like your reading a heck of a lot more, because I found that very difficult. That's one of the things. TCG can't watch injections.
Well,
anything to animals I struggle with.
Well, remember, when they kill the cat, the father goes and burns it in the incinerator.
Mm.
I mean, maybe the cat really did die. Maybe he did murder the cat, but everything else is all just an illusion, because so many things that happened clearly didn't happen. The tree didn't fall down.
Mm.
Certain doors didn't get broken. Certain things didn't get damaged. The organs inside the corpse aren't strewn about everywhere. Like so many things they experienced clearly were just illusions, just phantasms. So if the real cat wasn't here, then they couldn't really kill it, could they? So to me, I just assumed that the cat was just more supernatural sorrow horror, because every action this entity takes, every single action through the whole film is one of spiteful malice. Every action it takes. So if the cat was around, yeah, it would have killed it, but we have no evidence of that, because everything else they do to each other is just through this fugue of mental illusions and phantasms. Who's to say if the cat really got killed or not? I don't think it did. It probably just ran away.
I really hope so. I really, really hope so. But it's one of those things, like, it could go either way on this one.
Yeah, it could. But I would think that this is just part of the mind war against these people here.
Mm.
But anyway, that was the cat bit I wanted to talk about.
Mm. Yeah. Is there another thing did you want to talk about the father-son relationship at all?
I covered it early on. I covered it there. In my analysis of the things I didn't like, and in my couple of paragraphs I have about what I would have done differently to make the movie stronger, that comes up a little bit. But no, like, I thought it was a good relationship. It was presented well. It was acted very well.
Mm.
And through the whole movie, the father and the son, they love each other. They want to help each other survive. They deeply care about each other, and that's evident in every interaction in the film. It's handled really well. I like it. It was a good character piece.
I agree. There was. You said it was a very relevant problem, the problem of the son not wanting to follow in the footsteps, wanting to go out and do his own things. And I thought, yeah, definitely, that is. Heritage is rare. Like, being able to carry on something is rare, and he was pulled away. But then the fact that the son actually wanted to go back and help his father properly, I thought, I loved that. And there was a bit of a tie-in with the relationship between the father and the cat and the father and the son, I thought.
Yeah.
Just that way, like, the dad has this sense of sacrifice and duty. So even though he hates it, he does what he needs to do for the cat. And for his son, it's the same thing. Like, he will suffer to take care of the people he cares for.
Yeah. After they kill the girlfriend, when they think it's a zombie, I should say animated corpse. Like, when they kill the animated corpse, but it turns out to be the daughter, and they're having a very emotional, crazy time in the elevator. It's finally conveyed to the audience what actually happened with the mother. She was internally depressed and killed herself, and they didn't see it coming because she acted chipper and happy. She was just a little weird, and the father blames himself. He says, it's my fault. I should have spent more time with her. If I didn't work all the time to provide for you guys and spent more time with her, I would have known. Maybe I could have gotten her help. You can tell that this man deeply, deeply cares, and he is a beautiful archetype of a caring, good father and a noble man. And that rubs me the wrong way with some particular pause that we can get to if you'd like me to talk about it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll just highlight this detail that I love, that seeing him doing the challenge of raising his son and training him up and passing on the knowledge. It's so good to see. We get early on in this autopsy of a different corpse, their dynamic is is shown to us and not told.
Yep.
Like they're doing this with the son's music playing, and it's kind of obvious it's his music because it's more his generation. But in case we needed further detail, he's doing that when his father isn't there. So it's a son's music. The father appears to just be tolerating it. And I've tried to capture it with this screenshot, but you see generally the father is really, really focused. The son is kind of like looking elsewhere, kind of focused elsewhere, not 100% in it.
Right.
And that's before you find out that he's thinking of leaving. You're just shown already. He doesn't have the diligence. He doesn't have the focus of his father yet.
Yeah.
And the father then is schooling him and giving him the knowledge, giving him the techniques.
Yeah.
And you see that relationship so well.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
I love it.
Now,
but yes, shall we? I mean, I think we might be at the sort of gripe stage because we love this film, but we are fair and we have our gripes.
I have a short list of 4 things that won't take me long to get through. That I have as criticisms for why the third act of this movie is a little weak. And it starts towards the end of the second act. When the father is speculating about Salem witch trials, he goes on a short little descriptive diatribe about the Salem witch trials. And the way that he talks about it is like everyone that was killed as a witch was just an innocent good girl who didn't do nothing. And they died and were tortured at the hands of these stupid religious fanatics that were driven by an outdated, archaic religious belief. It's extraordinarily anti-Christian. I don't like it. Basically, the theme is this innocent girl was ritually tortured and killed by evil Christians, and their evil and their spite and their hate is what turned her into a supernatural monster. She became an object of their irrational fears. She is a creation of these evil Christians. And that was his take from what he read in the Bible and from what they put together about Salem witch trials. Not that, oh my God, witches are real, this is an evil witch. But no, you got to beat up the Christians and you have to carry this stupid paused feminist narrative of, female victimization shit. And if you look into the Salem witch trials at all, almost every time the women killed for being witches, now, it's allegedly, of course. I can't prove any of this. It was hundreds of years ago. But like the women that were killed were alleged to be guilty of some pretty nasty things all the time. Like murders, poisoners, people who left their sons to die in the woods, people who were regular adulterers who tried to turn men against each other and turn wives against husbands and stuff. Like even if only some of those were true. And obviously, mass hysteria is a real thing, obviously. And of course, even in the modern era, the innocent are still punished unjustly. That does happen. We live in an ugly world. But to choose to present the one narrative that this straight-laced, all business, sensible, reasonable man of science, man of duty, to have him speak just blatantly anti-Christian feminist pause, I thought was a very ugly, bad choice that is indicative of the times we live in and is indicative of the message that is always in things. And I didn't like that. And I thought that it really hurt the otherwise stoic, analytical, traditional father figure. I thought that really hurt his character presentation. What do you think about that?
I think it's a very fair take. I'd say if you want to know more about the Salem witch trials, TCG, That Crime Guy, has a video on his channel. He has a long stream about it. But for the purposes of this one, I think probably a lot of people who watch this channel regularly are aware that the witch trials and witch burnings, it's kind of a modern trope. It's the idea we have of it, that there were rampant witch burnings in Europe
just not
and
true.
in Salem. Yeah. it's quite, it's convenient. It's a convenient framing about against what is now a safe target.
Mm-hmm.
So in part, the film is trying to hook onto a convenient mythos that we will be aware of, but it's also.
But remember, like we say in the Go Free method, like we
it.
always say in the Go Free method, Hollywood isn't history, but unfortunately, most people's ability to comprehend and think about history is limited to movies and comic books and stuff. So
yes,
I think that's another reason why I think that the creators or the director or the writers, or maybe all of them together, they wanted to put this in to sort of give the people that are maybe slow in the audience something to grasp onto. And, you know, I'm sure that, you know, maybe the people that chose to do this didn't rub their hands together and say, oh, we're going to make these Christians look even worse. But when it comes to movies, you can never know. You never know. And, you know, one of the writers is named Goldberg, so whatever.
I'd be tempted to say that we're so long into this that you're kind of dealing with it just being people who are writing this out of received wisdom, who, like most of us I'd never looked into it. And I just, I was going around, witch burnings happened all the time, terrible. And until someone actually shows you the research and says, this really isn't the common thing you thought it was. This is not happening all the time. Here's the actual data. You know, you just kind of accept these things that you pick up passively. So possibly the same thing was happening for these guys. So it could go either way on that one. But if we're discussing I wouldn't quite call this pause, but this kind of feeds off that idea in that I do wonder, there's a feeling I have in this about the symbol of Jane Doe here. I sort of, I'll present the one that I'm less fond of, and then I'll talk about the one I'm more inclined to
I'll just be quiet and listen for a minute then. Go ahead.
Okay. So there's some theory that you could read Jane Doe here as the woman at the centerpiece. She's meant to be the archetypical victim, like the silent female, the put upon female, the female victim who is present but doesn't get to speak. And that's backed up by so this is almost saying, like in horror films, the women are props and don't get a role, their objects are objectified. And that's kind of backed up by the fact that as they manipulate her corpse, she is allowed to be very expressive. I'll just get one of her expressions up here. So this is after they've checked in her mouth and found out that her tongue was cut out. Again, getting you the idea of in a horror film, women are there as props to be killed and not to speak. Which is, folks, if you've been around this channel, this is nonsense. This is nonsense. And you even hear like centrist review YouTube channels like the Critical Drinker saying, oh, women had a hard time. And this is telling you someone has not watched films widely. Someone has not reached back to 1920s, 1930s films. Anyway, I won't get on that hobby horse.
I agree.
It's just that's just like that's another narrative that is just absorbed. Like, oh, the women didn't get to do anything in films. It's you haven't watched films. You've just heard that and taken it in anyway. So this idea of her as more symbolic of the role of women in films could be an idea that the director and writer are trying to get in. The beauty of it is they don't hit you over the head with it.
Yes.
No one basically looks to camera and says, oh, you know what is, can't you just imagine the Netflix remake of this? And the girlfriend would look.
It will be a fat dead Lizzo on the slab. Yeah.
The girlfriend would say, well, I'm sure a lot of guys would like to do this job, not having to hear women talk all the time. Ho, ho, ho. There'd be some kind of horrible line like that, you know, just to make sure you got it. But that's just an interpretation you could take of it. And I did find the fact that she was so expressive without saying anything, like quite moving, quite affecting. And I found myself connecting, like I really felt that she was suffering, and I felt for her throughout a lot of the movie. So I wouldn't be hugely fond of it if that is the symbolism they were going for. This is far too late for. I actually have a feminist interpretation of horror movies book here with the excellent name "Men, Women, and Chainsaws."
That's a great title.
It's such a good title. It's so good. Which I like. I like for sort of to get the different viewpoints, and I think the writer of that. Sorry, I'll try and read it here. Oh, it's Clover. It's Carol Clover, I think. She would probably like that kind of reading. The other reading that I really like a lot more is this kind of idea similar to of Jane Doe. Actually, sorry, yes, I've gone on a spiel. What do you think of that interpretation?
What
Do
exactly?
you think the idea that Jane Doe is meant to be symbolic of the role of women in horror?
I mean, that's a fair interpretation, but I can't speculate as if to that was the intent or not. I don't think it was, because this Andrzej guy, he doesn't seem like he created a particularly paused message at all. Like, it's not. Nothing about this movie feels like it has a political message. It doesn't feel like it's trying to insinuate anything about modern day or feminism or anything. If anything to go on, it actually bigs up male stoicism and the importance of tradition and family love, and that's obviously not what modern pause pushes. So, if anything, it leans more towards our side of things. But I don't think it's obvious, and I don't think that I can say for sure that that angle was something that the writers or Andrzej himself wanted in the film. I don't think that's true, but I mean, if you're going to critique it and say, is it possible? Yeah, of course it's possible, but it's so subtle. I can't say with any assurance.
Yeah, I like the counterpoint you put in there, because I think if someone might be tempted to reach for that and do that and say, oh, this is definitely what they're saying, you would have that to hand and be like, no. So maybe let's go for the other reading, which is looking at Jane Doe as kind of similar to someone like Samara or Sadako from The Ring, depending if you're seeing the American or the original Japanese version, where I think it's clever and tragic in that you have this female figure. And of course, we are more sympathetic to women. It's hardwired into us, and that is fine and good and natural. We naturally feel her as a victim, but she suffered and she's become spiteful. So,
and also, it can be true that she was a victim, but is also still an evil monster in the current and needs to be dealt with. Both of those can be true at the same time. And that's one of the things that makes people like Sadako and this maybe witch, maybe possessed corpse, we don't know. That's another thing that makes you inherently sympathetic to an entity that you shouldn't be sympathetic towards. So it's a good, and that's another part of psychological horror, by the way, is messing with the viewer.
Totally. It's a transformation when I go from this sympathy for her to, because in this frame particularly, I just feel like she's looking in pain, and I feel so bad for her. She looks surprised and saddened at this stage in the autopsy. And then for that to be turned and for her to be a source of evil and hatred and just vindictiveness, it's very much like the Sadako dynamic, where your best intentions are turned against you. These guys were doing the autopsy out of a sense of professionalism and decency and respect, and it went so
and out of
wrong.
friendship to the sheriff, because he could have just said, no, it's late, I'm closing my doors, I can't do this till tomorrow, because they'd been working all day doing autopsies, and the corpse didn't show up to their house till it was dark. So it was already like, what, 9:30 or 10 p.m. because they said they were going to go, the son Austin and the girlfriend Emma, they said that at 10 o'clock they were going to go see a movie or something. So like, it was clearly late when they got the corpse. And so, it shows that the father had a bond of friendship and a commitment to the sheriff, to his friend, to his community. It was good. Yeah,
totally. And the fact that it's this betrayal, and possibly, if she's just, she can't help being malicious now, and they were intending only good things. You've got two people who cannot help, who haven't come into it with bad intentions. I'm probably mangling that a bit, but that makes it more tragic. The tragic makes it land more emotionally, and that's what makes this a cut above regular horror. Like
Yes,
it's
definitely.
creepy when you're out in the woods, but betrayal,
Yeah.
someone getting something they don't deserve on a deep
Mhm.
level, that
Yeah.
hits you so much harder, especially when you've only got a couple of characters that you need to care about.
Yeah,
As you said,
and
like the girlfriend we don't care about, and like, yeah, we don't. She's not
well, we
terrible,
don't because I mean, no, the actress was fine, and she's a cutie pie. You know, they got a
Yeah.
cute young girl to be the girlfriend. But the reason why I say we don't care as a viewer is literally she's barely in the film. She only has like what 30 or 40 seconds of dialogue. Or she's barely in the movie, and she is only there as a touchstone for us to be told the story or to be shown the story, not told the story. She exists to not only have a horror moment of, oh my God, this person we love that's part of our family's life, I just killed with an axe. Oops. But it's also showing us what these men are experiencing isn't real. And that's part of the good storytelling because we're shown, not told. So she exists to serve that purpose. But the reason why I say we don't care is, I mean, when you are a usual movie critic and movie consumer like Chloe and I are, you know the characters that you're supposed to care about by how they're presented to you and how much screen time and screen focus they get. We can tell from the beginning, after the first few scenes, that the girlfriend is not a critical character to the narrative. She's just there, like the sheriff, like the investigator, like the detective, just sort of a support character that shows you that these men live in a community. And we don't think she's ever going to be more than that until she shows up dead an hour later in the movie.
And it's set up as well. She's not wasting time. We get the thing of Austin's going to help his dad, and he says to her, and so we hear, come back in a couple of hours. It's already in our brains and justified she will come back. But we forget about it long enough so that it's justified. A weaker film would have had her say, Austin, I was just worried. I wanted to check on you. Or if you're in the finale of Haunting of Bly Manor, you might say, guys, I know this sounds really weird, but I just had this dream, and so I had to come.
But this was not
I'm
a weak
still
film.
salty.
This was written by professionals who know how to tell a story. Like I said, it's good.
Yeah,
So-
just good work. Set up, payoff. We love it. We love to see it.
Now, speaking of things that I like and that aren't explained well, this is one of my other points of criticism in the movie. Do you think that finding the complex tattoos that match the religious iconography on the little paper cloth that had the paralytic flower in it, do you like they peel off her skin, off of her torso, and you see these complex ritualistic tattoos that match the cloth on the inside of her flesh? Now, most people watching a movie won't care. They'll think, oh, this is a sign that there's supernatural escalation. But my brain cares because I immediately thought, wait a minute. How are there these complex magical tattoos on the inside of her flesh, like that match the iconography and the symbols on presumably the Christians of the Salem witch trial who did Christian holy rituals to her to destroy her? Did they peel her skin off and make these tattoos inside her flesh and then put her skin back on? Did they do that? Because I know from working with corpses, even men that are like bikers that are heavily tattooed, when you do an autopsy, you don't see that ink beneath the top layer of the dermis and the epidermis. That ink does not present on the inside, and when it does, it leaks into the dermal tissue, and it doesn't look anything like the tattoo does on the outside of the epidermis. So these tattoos that we're shown are very precise and clear to see, even on the underside of the dermis, and that doesn't make any sense. And if the religious iconography and symbols and things matched the things that the religious people used, well, then that doesn't make much sense to me, because did these tattoos, were they cast on her like a spell in Dungeons and Dragons? Is this like a runic spell of binding to keep the demon bound to the corpse, and they have to bury it alive to keep the demon trapped to the body? Like, that's never told to us. And on the one hand, that's good, but on the other hand, almost everything else in the movie can be easily explained with what we're shown in the movie, except this. This sticks out in my mind as just like something that doesn't work, like seeing a person wearing two left shoes. It's like, wait a minute, that's not right. That person's wearing 2 left shoes. This
Brian, I
sticks
got
out
most
to me like
affected.
that.
Sorry.
But what do you think about that? Did you or Wholesome Waifu even notice that?
I think it was I think it was an element that was harder to integrate. So, for instance, folks, if you didn't watch it, just be clear, what we're shown is like all the internal damage is still there, things that would have killed her. So we get an idea of the horrible torment. She went under stabbing and then being burned, tongue cut off, all that good stuff. And that damage has stayed internal, but the external has fixed. She's still carrying the damage around inside her. So like, okay. So how does a tattoo fit into that? That's a good question. I could try and shrug it off as like the tattoo is damaged to the skin and therefore it was taken internal like everything else. But I got to be honest, also, I don't feel that's a good explanation.
And again, maybe the intention of the movie creators and the writers was to have just spooky, witchy looking runes on the inside of her to let the audience know, oh, this really was a witch, or this really was a necromancer who took her own flesh off and tattooed it with magical circles to keep demonic power inside her body and to give herself immortality. Maybe also when it comes to binding rituals, both in real life and in fiction, very common is the theme of finding a demon's sigil, its Solomonic seal, to bind a demon or to keep a demon out or to bind a demon in something. Like that's a common trope in fiction and in realistic esoteria and mysticism. Those things exist. I'm aware of those things. But again, just like an autopsy, just like the character Tommy said, we only deal with what we have in front of us and what we can write down about the corpse. I analyze a movie the same way. And I paused it and looked at the symbols that are inside her flesh, the tattoos. It's the same kind of markings that are on that religious cloth that was wrapped around the flower. So it's a weird 2 left shoes type of thing to me of why are they there? Why do they still exist? Is it something the witch did? Is it something that the Christians did? We don't know. And that's just kind of weird. And it doesn't fit to me where everything else can be explained. So I just wondered if you and Wholesome Waifu picked up on that or not.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it bothered me as much, but it is harder to integrate. And I suspect on some level, the writers aren't perfect. I think maybe it was possibly a rule of scary, as TV Tropes calls it. Like,
yeah, could be.
Not on the like terrible level of like a slasher where a corpse will just pop out swing down from the top of the screen to give you a quick scare. And you think, well, hang on, why is it stashed there? Why did it fall down at that moment, etc.?
Like, why did Jason Voorhees hide the body all the way up here in the attic in the steps just so it could slide out and scare somebody? Like, why do you do that?
Good old stashing Jason. There he is. He's like a squirrel with bloody nuts, just stashing them away.
Speaking of Jason, since we're getting short on time, speaking of Jason, can I move to my last criticism?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. For narrative reasons, I do not think it's a good idea to try to make a psychotic evil demon or witch a sympathetic villain. You just can't do it and have it land well to be a successful movie monster when there's nothing that prefaces that. If you're going to have a partially sympathetic movie monster, it has to be handled in one of 2 ways. A campy way that doesn't take itself too seriously, and Jason Voorhees is a good example. Jason was a beloved movie monster. He was a big hit, and he was clearly the mutant son of some evil swamp witch who was teased and bullied, et cetera, by other kids. So he has a bit of a sympathetic backstory. And remember, before he became the murderous juggernaut, his evil, revenge-driven mother, who maybe was a witch, maybe wasn't, he was basically animated or created against his will. So the Jason movie monster is just a tormented waterhead retard that became the unkillable juggernaut we all know and love on the silver screen. The other way is to give us ambiguity or even a glimpse into the backstory of a movie monster. A good example is the old woman in the Tooth Fairy story of Darkness Falls. I don't know if you've seen Darkness Falls. It was an early aughts, low budget
That's
B-movie.
Australian, isn't it? It had Emma Caulfield as Anya from Buffy. If I recall.
think so, yeah. I'm pretty sure, yeah. And I haven't seen it in years, but there was a little like comic book cartoon story at the beginning that it talked about an old woman who wanted to blah, 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 and she wanted to help the children, and she would give them a shiny coin for the baby teeth and blah, 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 blah. And then something happened and a child went missing and the town blamed her. So they boarded her up in her house and burned her alive, right? So that kind of thing, right? Like even just that little tiny bit of a story at the beginning of the movie, it plants that seed of a sympathetic monster that is only lashing out and doing evil because of relatable human suffering, right? And so if you have that from the beginning and she's a real woman and you can identify with that, then it can be used to pull on the heartstrings of the movie monster, or pull on the heartstrings of the viewers while they're experiencing the bad things the movie monster does. They're thinking to themselves, okay, why is the movie monster taking teeth? Why is the movie monster cutting everybody's left eye out? Why is it doing this? Why is it doing that? Does it mimic how she was tortured? Does it mimic how that? Well, we don't really get that with this movie. It's all completely vague until the very end of Act 2 and the beginning of Act 3. So let me find my place where it was in my notes here. Okay. Or perhaps we are allowed to visit with the pre-monster version of the movie monster. Like we see her when she's a little girl, or we see the bus driver when he was a nice man before he became the demon spawn that drives the hell bus that terrorizes the kids, whatever, right? Like if we can see that at one point they weren't wickedly evil and they possessed likable traits or did some good before they became a villain, that makes them sympathetic. So even if the monster as presented is completely unsympathetic, we still have that human connection to the unsympathetic monster in front of us. Yeah, but this movie
like
does
something like the 1992 Francis Ford Coppola Dracula did that exact thing.
Exactly.
We'll show him pre-vampire losing someone he loves, feel sympathetic, and then you can feel a bit for him as he goes and does his thing. So you're exactly right.
And that brings me to my point, is this movie did neither one of those things. Clearly, Jane Doe is not a pre-existing movie monster that people love. Obviously, she's never existed like this before. And we are not shown a backstory or an early version of this character or the corpse because she's a corpse. And perhaps the speculation of the corpse maybe being a human trafficking victim or being a good girl who didn't do nothing and evil Christians hurt her. Like maybe that's how they were trying to build some sympathetic backstory. But a corpse is not something that a human has lizard brain connection to. A corpse has lizard brain repulsion to a corpse. I mean, a viewer has lizard brain repulsion from a corpse. So I just don't think that lands, and it doesn't work well because we are shown nothing and we're told nothing, and nothing is insinuated about any action that this woman took in life at all. She is only presented as a mysterious beacon of spooky evil. And every single action that the spirit or the entity or she takes in the movie is one of malicious, selfish spite. So not even for survival, because she's a supernatural being of suffering that can't do anything but survive and regenerate forever. It's not for survival. It's because whatever this entity is, it just wants to hurt and to torment everything around it as much as it can. So you can't spin that as relatable or sympathetic in the span of 5 minutes after a buildup of an entire movie that suggests that she's not sympathetic and she's just a corpse that either attracts or is the beacon of an evil entity. I just don't think that works well. And paired with the heavy-handed dumb Christians like to hurt poor innocent women shit from earlier, I feel like that really dispelled the gravitas that this movie built up to that point. And ironically, it disempowered an otherwise powerful female villain.
Do you think maybe, I mean, I don't disagree with the framing of how to do a sympathetic villain. I wonder though if they were trying to start a sympathetic, so you're in with a familiar mode,
and then do a switcheroo, so it's like, oh god, she's not helpful, she's just a crazy evil thing, like that kind of twist. I don't know,
basically,
maybe
because towards the end, I don't feel sympathetic to her at all. Like she's in this moment I've got on screen, like she's offered a trade. The father thinks he understands her, and we think we're let off. And okay, a heavy price is paid. The father makes his sacrifice, as is right in a story. The father makes a sacrifice and the debt is repaid, but then we find out no, she's actually just malicious. She's still messing with them. So I think maybe we're only meant to be sympathetic to her up to a certain point, after which it's we realize she is just absolutely malicious.
And if you want to move away from my criticisms and not talk about them anymore, I do have some things that would be fun food for thought, ways that I think that could have turned this movie, which is a good movie, into a great movie. Do you want to hear those ideas?
Sure. I had one gripe of my own to get in, and then I'm good for it.
Sure. Then let's hear your gripe. I want to hear it.
It's a really minor one. It's one of my terrible complaints. I'm looking for it now. Sorry, it's an image, and it's about the use of jump scares. And I've got my image. Okay, here we go. So it's this moment early on. Here we go. It's when they're exploring the joints and find out that they're all fractured, and there's one of those early on, just intriguing. Like, how's that happened? How's she have fractured ankles and everything looks fine? You know, fractured ankles, fractured wrists. Great mystery, drawing you in.
Mm-hmm.
He pushes on this bone, and I just thought, in a weaker movie, this would give you a sudden violin noise, like a jump scare. Yeah. And I was like, oh, brilliant. No jump scare. I appreciate that. Thank you. Mm-hmm. This is just unnerving. You haven't released the tension. When you make me jump with a jump scare, I sort of, but then the tension drops. This just, seeing the joint move in an unusual way, just, it was uncanny and
it's
unsettling.
Really creepy.
Yeah. And then I think later they did move a little bit into jump scare mode. For about 3 of them, like, I will allow a jump scare or 2. I just thought there are a few too many where we had the jump scare.
Yeah, it did a little of that, like especially with the cat and with the sudden banging on the door after the quiet from the shuffling and the bell tinkling. There was a loud pound and a jump scare. By the way, everybody listening, is not just a sudden sound. It's the presentation. It's how the music will take an immediate shift. There'll be a music sting. There will be a hard cut in the edit to show something that will visually strike you on top of a loud sound. Like that's a jump scare. And this movie does that a few times. And I understand that as a horror movie maker, you probably want to have a little of that, but I prefer none of that. I prefer just proper presentation of scary things happening to drive my intrigue and my tension when watching. But I do agree with you. They did that quite a few times in the third act, like maybe 4 times, and it could have done without that.
They did elevate. To be fair to them, they elevated a little bit by the fact that the jump scares were often of the different corpses that we'd seen, that we'd been told about earlier, and seeing a corpse scream when its mouth has been sewed up.
Yeah,
I end up forgiving because it was creative, even if it was jump scare. So it's a minor. It was
a creative jump scare. Yeah,
it's a minor
and
gripe
for people.
Yeah,
and for people that watch it and they think, wait, how did the corpse get outside? How can it move and scream like that? Well, remember, this was all just a phantasm in the victims' minds. So she could have showed them anything she wanted.
Yeah. So with that said, that minor gripe, you had ideas for improving, and I love it when people try and fix a film. Like,
well, here's my ideas of what I think would have turned this good movie into a great movie. I have 3 bullet points. The third one's kind of long, but it won't take me long. Number 1, change the delivery about human trafficking to make it just one of a few musings that Tommy has. Maybe he lists off things like human trafficking, revenge from a cartel, maybe a particularly vile cult, and have him remain cold and analytical instead of acting sympathetic, because I think it would have gone well with reminding the son it's not his place to speculate, because then you'll become emotionally invested in a certain narrative, which could skew your findings. But he doesn't do that, because remember, he, as a favor to the sheriff, he's trying to get to the bottom of this to have something to tell him. And I think that's the only reason why the father goes down that road. But for tidy writing in a script, I think they had Tommy, the father, sort of harp on human trafficking to set up this women victim narrative to go with the victim of the corpse. And whether it's for a paused reason or whether it's for a switcheroo reason, like you brought up, we don't know. But I think it would have made the story stronger if the sympathetic angle would have just been one of several things said coldly and quickly instead of focusing on it when they're at the chalkboard. Number two, remove entirely the part about Salem witches being innocent and get rid of the anti-Christian coding entirely. Not just for my personal taste, but to keep the origins of the thing vague. It's always better to leave clues and make the viewer ponder instead of laying it out and telling them it's definitely this one thing. It would have been better for the biblical revelation to have no expository dialogue at all. Just them look up, when they find the thing in Leviticus and they look it up, he just points at it on a page and the son looks at it, and then they both just turn and look at the corpse with open gaped mouths and just sort of stare at it as it dawns on them that magic is real and witches are real. Like that would have been a much more impacting, better thing than him talking about, oh, they were just all poor good girls that didn't do nothing and psychotic Christians killed them because they believe in dumb shit. Like, that would have been much stronger for the film. And I think it would have been more effective at being scary because it lets the viewer's mind choose to be sympathetic or not. Lets them choose to put their own insertion of Christian values or not, or Christian hatred or not, in without the movie telling that for you. I think that would have made the movie stronger. And before I go into my final one, anything you want to say about that?
I lean towards it. Yeah, they pushed it towards a Salem explanation, which I think not a fan of. But how would you have felt if you had the son suggest it and then the father shoot it down with, okay, yeah, it could be that region, but they wouldn't do the tattoo thing, or like so you have the possibility raised and the father shoots it down. Like maybe they both point to something it could be, and then a reason it couldn't be that. Just so it stays mysterious.
Yeah, that would have been good too. If you wanted more dialogue about it, yeah, that would have worked.
And it would also help sort of shoot down the sort of the myth about Salem.
Yeah. My number 3 actually suggests much different endings. So I'd like to get into that. I think the movie would have been stronger if they actually went bigger in Act 3 than they did. When Tommy and Austin, the father and son, go back to the autopsy room for the final encounter with the Jane Doe corpse, have the corpse be gone entirely. It's not even there. And then you have Tommy angry, desperate, wanting to do anything to fix the situation and save his son. He angrily slams his fist into the autopsy table and says, "What do you want, you crazy bitch? If you want something and you want suffering, take me. Just let my son live." And then unseen magical force, poltergeist energy, lifts Tommy up. And that's when all of the damage is done to him. And it's much more gruesome, much more visceral. His hands and wrists break and blood flies out of wounds you don't see from his clothes. And supernaturally, he is mangled and tortured and destroyed with all of the same wounds and more than the corpse had. And then the movie plays out the same. It plays out the same otherwise. And then at the end, when the sheriff gets there, there's the pristine, undamaged corpse on the table. Oh my God, she's fully healed. Was it all just in their mind? Or does she need suffering to live? Is she like a vampire? Does she have to kill and cause suffering to keep her corpse from decaying? That would be a much bigger mystery and visually land much stronger with a much more powerful ending. Now, I have an alternate to that, but I'd like to hear what you think about that first.
I'd say for a film that was generally quite subtle, like showing lots of gore, but dispassionately in an autopsy, then going for a massive payoff, it does lean into my preference somewhat. For a film you like that we've talked about, folks, if you want to go back into the archives, Hellraiser, the payoff with a chap being torn apart, I love it. Build up and payoff in a grand bravura style, I love it. It's why I'm very forgiving of the Saw films, is that they tend to build up to a big moment when they're good, obviously. Variable quality.
I watched 3 of the Saw films, and I only thought the first one was even close to good, and I'm not a fan of them. Because I guessed it was the guy on the floor just a few minutes into the movie, and in the first one, and I just I didn't think it was very high. Maybe I'm just too smart for those movies. I don't know, but I don't like them. But anyway,
no, fair enough. Yeah, so I would be. I think that could work as well if they kind of save up the momentum for that big, brutal, quick payoff that you described.
Yes,
I could go for it.
And speaking of going big, my other alternative ending is also going big. Do you want to hear that one now?
Oh, please, yeah.
Okay. Alternatively, they go back to the room, and after it plays out like it did in the actual film, where she heals her corpse by killing Tommy, right? But then immediately after that, the body animates. She's alive again. And then for the next 5 to 10 minutes, she terrorizes Austin, the son, chases him, hurts him, makes him bleed, does horrible things to him, and clearly has the power to kill him, but doesn't, because that pays off earlier in the film, the cat playing with the dead rat. The cat enjoys playing with the mouse. And so she could chase him through the vents, and maybe she finally catches him and kills him in the vents, and then drops him on the ground like the cat dropped the rat. She could do all manner of beautiful horror movie things that wouldn't have cost much money, but then you have the payoff of, oh my God, it's a real monster. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? And and maybe even give her a little personality. Maybe give her a few lines of cruel but interesting dialogue. Maybe she speaks in a language that the viewer doesn't understand and there's no subtitles. That gives her personality. That gives her real character as an evil movie monster. So not only is that good sequel bait, it will make the monster memorable and have personality. And people that like movie monsters like that. They like their evil movie monsters to have a mystique about them and an interesting, horrible charm to them. And the torturing and the playing with Tommy, like a cat plays with the mouse, paired with some particularly cruel or really interesting, weird dialogue and maybe old Latin or something like that, could have really paid off well in this movie, and it wouldn't have cost much money to do that. And like I said, not only is that good for sequels, but it's just better in general, because after such an intense buildup, that kind of payoff would really resonate with viewers. And it would be a visceral escalation, just like the viscerality of most of the film, because visceral things were done to her, and then when she animates, she does visceral, torturous things to Austin. And I think that would have been a good payoff.
With that, I get an almost sort of end of Event Horizon vibe, just when it's suddenly the game changes and you're dealing with a totally different threat. I think what I like about this is that lack of that sort of payoff, and just her discipline in just not moving at all until the end. So I probably wouldn't go for that. I think I can see how it would work, but I think what I like about this is that just it stands out by her never doing it. So I prefer the first suggested change.
That's why that was my first one. That's what I would prefer more. But if you want to elevate this character to be something that there could be a sequel about, I think that would have been a fun way to do it. So in the sequel, you're wanting to see what she'll do next. You're wanting to see just how she's going to manifest, or what she's going to do to the next funeral home, or how she's going to use whatever power she has to further terrify people and terrorize them. And I like movie monsters having personality, because I always want there to be another Freddy. I want there to be another Michael. I want there to be another Jason. Like, I want those things. Those things are awesome. I love those things. Now, as a standalone, that's just a one-off. That second alternative is not good. But if you're wanting to create a repeating movie monster, that's the way that you would do it. Because remember, I had 2 criticisms about what they didn't do. So I wanted to give 2 alternatives of what could be done. So that's why I had 2 different ending versions.
For a sequel, it would definitely work better, just for the variety. You can't just repeat it. You do have to change it up. So the idea of her being able to do more in a sequel, I'd be more sympathetic to that. But yeah, I like that.
Again, I like my one-offs too, of course. Like I like things. And one of the problems that you always have is the endless amount of churning of prequels and sequels. I get that. So I understand that. I also, as a viewer, I like one and done type of movies. Those are good. I like those. But, I wanted to proffer some things, because remember, everybody listening, I love this movie. This is a good movie. I want people to watch it and like it. But I have a few minor criticisms, and they're just minor. And so I wanted to go out of my way, since I do love this movie, to think of a couple of ideas that would have elevated it for me personally. I'm not saying that the movie sucks without doing what I said. I'm not like that.
Yeah.
Because remember, I like this movie and wanted Chloe to cover it because I love it.
I like the challenge as well as like once we criticize, let's put a little bit of ourselves out there and try it. So I like to do that as well. And for a sequel, that would make sense for me. And this could do a sequel. You have
certainly.
room to do a lot more. But we are past the 2-hour mark, and in order to stay on the right side of Super Nanny, I think we should probably move towards our closing thoughts and scores.
Certainly.
And chat as well. Very lively chat tonight. I like it. And I see a lot of people have said they haven't seen it. They've got the full spoilers and now they really want to watch it. Brilliant. That means we have done our job. This is a film that will still be amazing even when you have heard all our spoilers. I guarantee it. So, but for people who have watched it, get your scores in. If this is your first time and you've seen it, we use an out of 12 burgers, except for Years who has an out of 11 score. We are traditionalists here.
Well, I believe in there being a score to 11 because I like Christopher Guest movies. And of course, I love Spinal Tap. And if it goes to 11, then that means it's the best. So nothing has ever gotten a full 11 out of 11 from me because I think it's important to have that sort of top echelon that can never be reached. You should always strive for perfection, but only God can obtain that, of course. So when it comes to my score, I would give this a 9.5 out of 11 ghosts. That's one of the highest scores I've ever given a movie. In the modern era, especially, look at the other dreck, the absolute pig trough dreck that this movie stands up against in the modern era. That elevates this well above and beyond. And I feel the same way about the Black Coat's Daughter as well. Have you seen the Black Coat's Daughter yet? I've asked you to.
Yes. If you're looking for it, you might find it retitled as February.
Yes.
But very slow burn, very patient, really, really atmospheric.
And it's also psychological. And if you want to, I would come back in a few weeks and cover the Black Coat's Daughter for psychological horror if you want, because it's a very good one for that.
Oh, nice. I'm going to have people vote on that. So I will put Black Coat's Daughter in the mix.
I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite modern horror films. And it will surprise you who wrote it. He is a goofy, lovable comedy gentleman named Oz Perkins. And this movie, Black Coat's Daughter, is entirely his project. It was his baby, and he made one of the most effective, scariest, mess with your head horror movies I've ever seen. And it's called Black Coat's Daughter, and it's very, very good. So if you want to have me back on for that, I'd love to. It doesn't have to be this month for the psychological horror, but if you are going to cover Black Coat's Daughter, I would enjoy coming and offering for that movie what I offered for this movie today. Absolutely. It is saved for you. Excellent. Your score of 9.5, that's matching with a lot of people. What I'm seeing here, I'm seeing 10s, 8s, strong 9, another strong 9. Yeah, that feels. I think we've convinced chat. We're in unity with chat here. Good. All right. So I'm glad that you guys like this because I was hoping that your audience would really like this. This is a movie that flew under the radar for a lot of people, especially people that just, look at movies on the American ticket. This movie came out here, of course, but it wasn't very big. And this is one of my favorite movies of the modern era. And of course, I like horror and sci-fi. That's pretty much all I watch. And I'm glad that you guys liked it too. I'm glad that to see other people have good taste out there and like good films. And I think this is a good film. And like I said, despite my criticisms, on its own, as it is exactly out of the box, excellent movie. I recommend everybody watch it if you like horror movies. Yeah, very strong. To throw in my 2 pence, this is an atypical movie. It's big on character. You've heard all the things I loved about it. I cannot overemphasize how much I love the quality of the photography. Roman Osin, again, an interesting German Nigerian chap. That's an interesting background. That's interesting. Yeah. Trained in. Well, he's listed here as a British cinematographer of German Nigerian descent. I'm not going to try and unpack that. The guy makes really good photography. So, yeah, was he DP on this?
Yes, he was director.
He did a
of photography.
fantastic job.
Mm.
All of the shots are so tight and so clean, and even the angles convey what they want you to feel. Like looking up into the mouth, looking into the nose, looking into the like up inside the empty carcass when they have all of her organs out. The way that the locked off shot in the office, the way that the camera's positioned in the elevator scene, like everything about the DP is top notch for this. Like I would give the DP 10 out of 11 ghosts on this. Like he did a top notch job.
Yeah, seriously, and handling light conditions, handling dark as well. Really, really strong lad. So that was great. And just, it's a tight movie as well. We can't pray. It's so easy to imagine another 10, 12 minutes of fluff in this that didn't need to be there, took out. Even the stuff about the son thinking about leaving and not carrying on the tradition.
Yeah.
It's not carried on because it doesn't need to be. It's
because they're all dead anyway.
Yeah, waifu, I will explain it afterwards. We covered it in stream and we're overrunning.
Yeah.
We've already discussed the cat.
Chloe even has a copy of yeah, Chloe has a copy of my notes, so she can even show you what I wrote about
it.
So.
Exactly. So yeah, just this is so good. This is cut above. It deserves to be seen. It really is a standout film. So, and it's wholesome and it's positive. We talked about some of the ways it could have bad messages. There's a little bit in there, but otherwise there's a deep.
It's only a minor gripe from me.
Yeah,
only minor. Like any anti-white or anti-Christian sentiment in this, it's so subtle. Only people like me who look for that stuff would probably pick up on it. It's very minor. It's safe to show to anybody who likes good horror movies. They probably won't even bat an eye at it. So
yeah, that's fair. All right. So and in score, I've got to be generous towards this. I like this. I'm sorry. It's an 11. It's an 11 out of 12.
Wow. Okay.
You know, I really like it. It doesn't mess around. It does the stuff I like. I can't. Yeah, I think it's an 11. I would recommend this to anyone. I think people could go for it. It is very creative. I would point people to this to get them to like horror more and not write horror off, have it, and thinking it's all cheap slashes. This is what I would point to. So
yes. I would say the same about Black Coat's Daughter, and I'm interested to see what you think about it.
Yeah. And I'm getting it. Okay, because it's you, Mima. I will do this for you. So the cat, there are two takes on the cat theory. Both agree that because the storm has already started at the time, before we see the cat die, we cannot trust anything we see. And it's therefore very possible that in one reading, the cat was never there in the first place. It was just there to traumatize them. The cat was outside enjoying things, hunting, as we know it hunts. It's already had one catch, so it's probably gone out to hunt. We also saw it didn't like Jane Doe, so it probably went to avoid her. The cat is outside and safe. The cat lived. The other one is that they discovered the cat, and the cat was actually alive, but they were made to think it was injured, and therefore they killed it and burned it for no reason. You could go either way on this one. So there we go. Those are the cat theories, but it's great because if you're paying attention and you realize the storm isn't real and the storm comes first, then you can start to doubt everything. And this film really pays attention to the details.
Yes. Like I said at the beginning, very tight, very professionally crafted script. It was written by people who knew how to make this kind of story, and the director and everybody involved, and we just praised the DP. This is well conceived and well executed as the movie it is.
Absolutely. So strong scores all around. With that, that is our coverage of the Autopsy of Jane Doe. I will recommend this strongly. And at this point, I've got to give you your horror homework. I think I announced that the whole slate of chosen movies at this point, but I'll just repeat it in case you didn't catch it, and I'll put a post out as well. The next movies that we're covering for this next week is Das Experiment. That is a German film from the early 2000s based on the Stanford Prison Experiment. It gains very interesting context from being redone in German by the director Oliver Hirschspiegel. And we've got Josh from Lotus Eaters coming on for that. And after that, Harry, also from Lotus Eaters, was very keen, like you years, requested a film. And I thought, well, this fits. He really wanted to talk about Kill List. So we're going to be doing Kill
I know
List
that one.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that rewatch. So 17th, Das Experiment. Find it. Ideally watch it in German with subtitles. And the 24th, it's Kill List. And keep an eye out for my community posts because I'm going to be doing a poll for what the 4th film on the 31st should be.
Vote for Blackcoat's daughter.
I also remember someone asked if I'd seen Afterlife with Christina Ricci. I haven't. I've never heard of that. I'll try.
I've heard of it, but I've not seen it. I know it exists, and it's a movie that my husband and I almost watched a couple of times. But we chose to watch something else instead. And if you want to do that one, I'll watch it and comment on it.
Okay, I'm going to look it up now, just so I remember because you always. There we go. I've got that saved, so I'll look it up after this. But yeah,
I don't know anything about it, so I have no comment. But if you wanted to do it, then I'd definitely watch it for the stream homework. I'll be glad to.
Nice. All right. Well, we'll see what people vote for. All right. But yeah, that's it. You've heard our review. You've had the horror homework. If you haven't already, I dropped a cheeky video responding to the news about Scream 7's new director. If you want my take on that, that's out there. And I'm pretty confirmed I want to do a much deeper dive into Scream 6. Because I think it deserves the deeper attention. That's not going to be a positive video, but it will help you understand what makes the film work and what makes the film set itself on fire and dive headfirst into a wood chipper. So yeah, that is everything. So massive thanks to you, Years.
Massive thanks to you too for having me on. I love being on your streams, especially when it's about something that I'm passionate about and have a lot to share. I would love to do this again. I'm yours any Thursday you want. I just need ahead of time notice.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Yeah, I mean, any guest who turns up with notes, you know, I've got a soft spot.
I know Wholesome Waifu does too. I've seen her say in the chat before she loves that. So
yeah,
I do my best to do my homework well and come prepared with many good things to share about whatever we discuss.
Oh, nifty. Reminder, there's a link to Yiz's socials in the description if you want to hear more, and I hope you do. Yiz is a good friend of the channel. You've got your horror homework. I want to thank you, chat. I've loved your contributions tonight. Nice and busy. Love to see it. I'm so pleased you like this. And I hope to see you next week. That is everything. So I sign off now, as I always do. Thanks, y'all. Cheers. And hashtag Shellgang for TCG. Night, folks.
Good night.